move straight into this panel, which is about why leaders can't afford to stand still. So Aaron, if I can start off with you, and I'd like to get your thoughts about the individual success of a security professional and how we're often doing the work that goes unseen and the implications of that.
Yeah, no, thanks, John, and pleasure to be here. I think one of the big reasons why leaders can't stand still is because the world isn't. We only need to look at the last 24 hours to realize just how complex, how unpredictable, or in some cases, a little bit predictable in terms of conflicts occurring, to realize that we can't stand still. I think one of the biggest challenges for us as senior security leaders or leaders in general is the invisible success. And when we talk about the invisible success, we talk about security professionals that do all of the hard work that is often unseen. All of the work in the background to set everything up, to manage risk, to mitigate. You do all of your homework. But often what's seen is your failures. So this invisible success that you have is one of the main reasons why you have to continue to work hard within the security space, to continue to do the work that is often unseen. Because the simple fact is that the majority of the time, your work won't be seen, and your successes are invisible, but your failures, contrary on the other side, are very visible. And so that really talks about the value you bring as an individual. And you might not be able to demonstrate your return on investment with currency or with how much money you saved the business. In some cases, you probably can. But ultimately, it's about having success without the glory, without the recognition, but knowing that what you do is worthy of that recognition. The really important stuff when you realize, actually, the work we do is invisible, but it's so important. And we do what we do because we love it, ultimately.
And thanks, Aaron. And Evita, I'd be interested in some of your thoughts around this trusted relationship that we have.
Absolutely. The key aspect I think people forget about security leaders, they're actually diplomats. It is not just about them ensuring that the perimeter is secure and operations continue, but the key skill feature is they need to be diplomatic, they are strategists, they need to understand the operations in and out, alignment with the leadership team. I think we had a good panel session earlier that specified about crisis leadership, the qualities. Alignment with the senior leadership of the organization, be it your public institutions or the private institutions or the government itself. Now, as a security leader, certainly there are few key elements that they need to have in place, and that's what we've seen. One is having that adaptability, having the resilience mindset. If I say resilience mindset, it's not just about the organizational resilience of navigating through the various crises, it's always evolving, but also having that mental health and managing your stress, not just your mental health and stress, the way you foster the entire culture aspect of managing crisis, security issues, it's on you. So yes, not just about successes, the way you navigate, the way you collaborate, the way you partner with industry leaders, with key stakeholders with the organization, you end up actually being an ambassador of managing a crisis situation or a security situation as well. So I think that's the key element.
And James, what are your thoughts on this?
So I think it's a really interesting topic, and as I say, I come from an integrated background. If I go back 20 years in my experience, effectively you were dealing with a much smaller subset of stakeholders in organizations. You were dealing with the security managers. Ultimately, you were, I wind the clock forward to today, and you're dealing with a multitude of stakeholders within organizations. IT, clearly, HR, increasingly marketing, operations. It's a very diverse environment with ultimately very different needs coming from those stakeholders. We talked about it before. And what it takes is the ability to be adaptable, to be the trusted advisor, but the trusted advisor to a very diverse subset of people. And it forces you to be humble. I think it forces you to be courageously collaborative and ultimately to ask the right questions. And I think what it's really encouraging us to do as leaders is to accept that what we know today might change tomorrow, and constantly going around that cycle, as I talked about just before. It is not linear. It is completely circular, that process, and you need to continue to adapt. As leaders, you can't afford to stand still, and that's what gives you the ability to adapt and deliver what we need to for the stakeholders in those environments. So.
Thanks, James. And Ali, if I come across to you, and in your role with SERA and managing some probably pretty big projects, how is the leadership angle undertaken by your team?
Well, the leadership actually starts before SERA. It starts from our leaders. So I like to quote His Highness Sheikh Mohammed. He has a phrase in his books actually where I can quote it for you. He says that if we waited, we will be still a fishing village. So that means we cannot afford to wait for changes. As you know, technology always changes. And this is how we brought Dubai from a young 40-year-old city to one of the pioneers in global security. And this is reflecting to our roles. So as Aaron said about the invisible leadership, we lead by seeing our leaders lead. So this let us strive and achieve what we achieve today by seeing their vision and aligning with their vision, and actually adding to the security and the safety of this city by putting some of the regulation which helps everyone sleeps better at night. And as he said, no one has, let's say, any idea of what we are doing, because it's usually behind the scenes as a security, and there is no ROI on that. But the cost of sleeping safely at night doesn't measure with any value, I think.
And thank you. And Evita, I think you've got some comments to add on to that as well.
Absolutely. I think I echo Ali's statement. I've been in the Middle East now, it's 2+ decades. And UAE, I call it my home because it has various risk intelligence and the framework that we know the government is doing behind the scenes. And I think that's key. One of the key principles as leaders, and not just as ensuring that the government takes the steps, and obviously UAE does take the step, but it's to ensure that we have a robust framework with real-time monitoring systems. There's lots of risk intelligence, analytics platforms, be it not just from the networks, but actually even from the government authorities, if you like to collaborate. But you need to establish that entire robust framework and take the leverage and take the advantage of it. The other key element is your crisis management protocols. Now, the crisis management is not just about security. We're talking about terrorism, war, kidnap, where normally security leaders are associated with these types of crises or events. However, it is for the leaders in security to look at the overall crisis management protocols and the framework. How would that particular incident, be it your financial stress situation, would actually have a direct or indirect impact on the security aspects? There's a key element of transparency. I think that's, again, one thing I love about the UAE government as well. And I think I was having a conversation before this session with Ali. He was talking about the different frameworks and protocols, about fleet management, about how do you manage maybe ensuring there's not much of drug trafficking, ensuring everything is secure for our packages and information. So having this culture of transparency, ensuring that you communicate that to your key stakeholders, like what James had mentioned earlier, is key. And again, all of this is through a very diplomatic approach. And ensuring that all of this even goes through as part of your continuous learning. And I learn every day, actually I learn every moment. In a given day, as a leader of managing IMEA region, there's always something happening in some part of the country, some level of stress, and a good level of stress. I think it keeps me motivated. But how do you ensure that you build a reflective practice of all the learnings getting in your approach towards things, and how do you take your time out, maybe 5 minutes of reflection every 2 hours? Am I going on track? Am I something that I need to look at? I need to reprioritize my actions, or I need to guide the team in a different way, or guide the stakeholders, be it the governments or the ministries or the organizations, in a different tangent, because it's always evolving at this stage. So,
and thank you, Evita. And Aaron, if I can just come across to you with touching upon a discussion we had during the week where we looked at developing the security pipeline of the next generation leaders. And you gave me a great statement that's in my head, which is about providing top cover and support in public, but coach in private. Can you expand upon this concept?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think just to talk about what Evita was mentioning as well, I think pressure creates resiliency. And I think everybody in this room has become comfortable and accustomed to pressure. But ultimately, we're also responsible for the next generation of security professionals. As many of us are leaders in the room here today, it's our teams that really are the prowess, the analytical prowess and the security support that enables the success of the function. So we're responsible for ensuring, and I had this conversation earlier, around setting up some of those protocols to manage pressures, manage stress to the team that are up and coming. And I think for us, we have to be accountable for ensuring that those security professionals that are developing in our space, in line with the evolving threat landscape, are able to do so with confidence and with ambition, and failing sometimes with ambition. And so when we talk about top cover, as leaders, as line managers, as line directors, whatever it might be, it's providing that top cover to your team to say, I'll support you in public because I understand and I probably will feel very confident that you made that assessment based on the best information and knowledge that you have. And by the way, there is never enough intelligence to give you the full picture. There will always be information requirements missing. So this supporting in public, so you're allowing your team to fail with ambition, to develop, to learn, but then in private, coaching and mentoring, I think is really important for that individual's confidence and development.
And thanks, Aaron. And I'd like to sort of move across this topic about, which we discussed during the week, about responsibility of making high-stakes recommendations in real time. And James, I wonder if you wanted to start this discussion off about how do we accept this responsibility of in real time making high-stake decision-making, which probably affect lives, and how this comes into sort of the trust equity and building trust with partners.
Yeah, I think I'd just touch on one thing that Aaron mentioned there as well about the concept of coaching, because I think the thing for us to realize is that you can't, our experience dictates a lot of our behaviors, and we often use that in order to be able to coach and mentor those that follow us. I think the security industry is at such a point that you need to develop a slightly different mindset. If I watch my kids go through school, the concept of artificial intelligence and these sorts of things is driving a different way to educate. People have to be more independent. And when we think about the concept of responsibility and driving those decision-making process, we have to make people knowledgeable, feel supportive, but ultimately be able to make decisions in real time, understanding the consequences, but ultimately understanding the landscape that's around them. They can't sit and it be insular in terms of this is all I can see in front of me. The security industry needs to be much more aware of the implications of leadership decisions and what we do in order to protect what matters most. And sometimes it's easy to see what matters most to us, or maybe the people in your immediate line of sight, but ultimately you have to broaden the mindset to see everyone else within that. And that's an art, and I think as we develop the future of our industry, they need to understand those things, and they need to be educated to be, one, knowledgeable, but two, ultimately able to be able to take decisions in real time based on the circumstances that they're confronted by.
Thank you. And Evita?
Sure. I just want to add a key element here. It's all about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, not just about the crisis situation, anticipating threats. You may use all the high-end analytical tools of intelligence tools that's available, but it's also about how do you relate to your stakeholders, understanding your stakeholder landscape, not just about the industry that you work with, their leadership, your partners, your third parties, the communities that you operate, but also, I think, holistically. It all depends upon how do you want to collaborate. And that would require a couple of key skill sets. And we think we touch base upon a very key element about mentoring and coaching, I think by both James and Aaron. Networking and collaboration. I get a lot of my intel And I can tell you a real-time example. When one of the countries did have, they're very highly sensitive, and we were just planning out, foreseeing, okay, in case there are terrorist strikes, or in case of serial bomb blasts, what should be the plan? So we had plans in place, but when do we actually invoke it in real time? Can we build that intel? So yes, the country did specify red alert reports, identify the intelligent landscapes, identify that. But it's about when do we trigger? So having that network collaboration with the right authorities actually helped us to trigger evacuation before the serial bomb blast. And I think at that point of time, I do remember at that instance, none of my organization's employees had an impact because we already triggered an evacuation. Yes, the nearby place, there was one person that had a fatality, but we could actually limit that impact. It is all through network, collaboration with authorities, building that trusted advisor and trusted partnership of providing that information so that you do not actually create disinformation and misinformation across the market and segment. I think that reflective practice and that collaboration, feedback mechanism, not just getting feedback of failures, feedback of successes, the learnings, and its entire process is a continuous learning life cycle. I think it's continuous learning. These are the key skill sets as how do you actually, as leaders, that you master the craft of being resilient, being adaptable, being a diplomat, even during crazy crisis situations as well.
And thanks for Evita. And Aaron, if we take on this approach about the trust, and something I know we've discussed many times, is the low-hanging fruit and building up the 1%. Can you elaborate a bit more on that for us?
Yeah. No, actually, I think you best summed it up when we had our conversation. It's sometimes these low-hanging fruits, these 1% activities that we conduct, that sometimes feel a little bit rudimentary, sometimes feel it's not our job, it's not our position to be doing X, Y, Z. It's not our responsibility to connect the left hand with the right hand, this department with that department. I think you summed it well in terms of we have to be conduits within the business. And I think that's our evolution as well as leaders, is that we have to break out of our own silos, but break into other people's and other functions and their silos. You know, traditionally we'll partner with other functions that have commonalities. Maybe it's health and safety, maybe it's cyber, maybe it's compliance or quality. But we really should be looking at where can we partner with procurement, where can we partner with legal counsel, where can we partner with HR, because everybody will have their own risk landscape, and your value is bringing the security lens to that risk environment and providing value there. So yeah, these low-hanging fruits, very simple. Just engage, make friends, just connect. I think that's it. It's the easiest thing to say, but I think in this day and age, with the way that people connect and communicate, it's actually quite difficult to do.
Thank you. And Ali, if we follow this subject about connecting, making friends across departments, how
just to
tell us
add
your story.
on Aaron when he said do the first step, connect the left hand with the right hand. This is what we do in here in UAE. We connect ourselves with, for example, with other government entities, with Dubai Police, with Civil Defense, with RTA, because a collaborative group is stronger than a single entity. So this is why we always take this initiative to contact, to open communications with government and even with the private sector, because your ignorance until you ask your first question. So if you have any doubt, you can ask people. So my fathers always have said to me that to have the half answer or to have an answer, you have to ask the question first. If you never ask the question, you will never get the answer. So collaboration is very important in our field. It exposes a lot of, let's say, weaknesses. It exposes a lot of things that we can add with other people expertise. For example, let's say in civil defenses, they have a project of their fuel tankers, right? Or sorry, their fire trucks with their water tanker, and they wanted to know their locations, for example, etc. They are not the specialists in this field. Sierra is. So they have approached us and they have been looking for a perfect solution for them, maybe for 2 years. We solved it in one meeting. So this is why engaging with people will help you achieving your goal with not even knowing that it's achievable, let's say.
And that's a great example of collaboration, so thank you for sharing that with us. Now, unfortunately, time's come to an end, so please join me in thanking the panel. And